everyone, and welcome to this morning's Education, Children and Young People's Executive. And as you see, we have a little treat for you. But before we go into that, we'll just do some of the housekeeping. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Convener, we have apologies from Karen Project.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Reid and Councillor McHugh. Councillor Nicholl. Okay. Do we have any declarations of interest? Okay, we do have the minute of the meeting of the 19th of November. Can we agree that as a true record?
Agreed. Convener, sorry, can we maybe get an update regarding the school term dates? Because I know there was issues with Stirling at the time of the last meeting.
I think the consultation is concluded, but I think we still have to collate it between the other authorities, but I will ask for an update.
Yep, I can give you an update. Very good question. The update is we've concluded our consultation, and likewise Clackmannanshire Council have concluded theirs. Stirling is still in the process of undertaking their consultation. It will be finished in February, and we plan to bring a report to this executive in March, which will show the summary of all three councils' consultation findings, and it will conclude with some recommendations as well.
Okay. That brings me to the rolling action log, which that item appears on to come back. Is there anything else in the rolling action log that anyone thinks is out of sync or has been missed? No. Okay, thank you. Next presentation is about the importance of really good corporate parenting, and it's going to be led initially by Sarah Lacey, but we also have a team from our Champions Board presenting, and Siobhan, Vivian Thompson, Caitlin and Janet Weir will also be having an input. As sitting on the Champions Board, as some of you do, know just how really positive and effective that has been, and it is a great development that we've had about being able to genuinely have co-production of services and allow the young people to actually influence what matters to them. So I hope that you'll find it informative and enjoyable. So I'll hand over to Sarah.
Good morning, committee. I'm Sarah Lacey. I'm Head of Children's Services Social Work, and I am with my team today. We've got Vivian Thompson, Janet Weir, Siobhan O'Neill and Caitlin Mossman. In a moment, I will hand over to them and they will talk to you about the importance of really good corporate parenting. When children and young people are received into local authority care, we do that to make a difference, to improve their outcomes, to make things better, to keep them safe. But unfortunately, far too high a number of that cohort of young people find themselves with really poor outcomes, find themselves much more likely to become homeless over their lifetime, to live in poverty over their lifetime, and to find themselves within the prison system. As corporate parents, we have a really important collective responsibility to work together, to listen really carefully to what children and young people tell us, and to join with them to develop the services that best meet their particular needs over the long term. On the 5th of February, the Independent Care Review will launch their conclusions. They have been in review since 2017. I expect there'll be a lot of media interest on the 5th of February. I hope there's a lot of media interest on the 5th of February. I anticipate that corporate parenting will be in really sharp focus as a result of the outcomes of the review. I also anticipate that this committee, soon and over the course of the next few years, will be considering decisions that need to be made on the back of the review. I think we'll also be looking at the implications and the implementation plans that come from new legislation stemming from the review too. So on that basis, I hand you over to 8 very capable hands to talk to you about corporate parenting and the Champions Board.
So thank you very much for having us this morning. And as Sarah said, my name is Vivian Thompson, and part of my responsibilities as a service manager in Children's Services is to oversee some of the corporate parenting work that we do. And members will know that we have a corporate parenting plan, that corporate parenting is now established in legislation. And our corporate parenting plan over the last 3 years has had 3 specific priorities. And these have been development of the family firm, awareness raising about corporate parenting, and the final one was the development of the Champions Board. We are about to embark on submitting our second corporate parenting plan, and the young people are going to be very involved in that. We're going to have a hackathon with them and with other members, so that the young people's voice is very much at the centre of our priorities, and that will of course be influenced by the care review findings that Sarah has been speaking about. And I'm only going to talk just very, very briefly, just to give that kind of context for where the Champions Board has come from. We are very proud of the young people in our Champions Board. They have been on a real journey over the last 3.5 years, I think it is. And some of the things that are up here just indicate some of what the young people have been doing. They are going to talk about some of the things that they feel are their real achievements, some of the ways in which they have influenced policy and are beginning to influence practice. And I'll let them do that for themselves, because they are both very able and capable speakers. But what I do want to underline is that the fact that Caitlin and Siobhan are able to stand up here today, and the fact that the young people have been able to do some of the things that you will hear about in a moment, is because they've been on their own personal journeys. And I spoke specifically to Siobhan last night to say, could I say a little bit about her personal journey? And she agreed. And Siobhan, as you know, is our care experienced young person on this committee. And 3.5 years ago, what she always says is, I wouldn't open my mouth. And that was quite right. She would come to meetings and she wouldn't open her mouth. She now sits as a member of your committee. She is now employed with us on the Champions Board as a member of staff, and is on a very exciting individual journey. And it's all the work that has gone in to building the confidence of these young people who have not always had the best start in life, and who have not always had good experiences. And it's that commitment to the individual development of relationships and building their confidence and building their capacity that is enabling them to begin to make a real difference to how we operate as corporate parents. So I'm going to hand over to Siobhan, and she's going to take you through the presentation. We did have a small video that the young people have made, and we think probably because of the technical problems we're not going to be able to show that. But if members would like to see some of the interactive pieces of work that they have done, then we can certainly show these at a future date when technology allows.
Vivian, if you don't mind, I'm going to give it a bash because we have uploaded it onto our Facebook page, so I may be able to access the video if I just have a wee minute.
If it doesn't work, then perhaps you can maybe circulate the link to members, and that would perhaps help.
Yep. So in year 2, Champions Board members have built relationships and got to know each other. We officially launched the board in September 2017 with an event at Callender House. As some of you may remember, as a lot of corporate parents attendees and pledges were made to support our important work. We identified 10 main priorities at the Champions Board meetings, such as mental health, transport and leisure, language and care, and housing, but we will come back to a few of these priorities later on. We got approved the new housing protocol, so for the first time since the Champions Board was created, we were asked to sign off a very new important piece of policy called the Housing Protocol. This was a new way of working to support young people with their housing needs as they left care. And we've also got to know our local corporate parents. I will pass you on to Caitlin for year 3.
New formats for Champions Board meetings agreed. From the experience over the first year of the board meetings, we reviewed the structure and agreed a new format for the Champions Board meetings. This included inviting your corporate parents such as Police Scotland, NHS, Jem from CVS and Kenny from Housing to sit on our board. Champions Board work continues to 2021. We managed to get more funding from the Life Changes Trust to continue our work to 2021. We hope this work continues beyond this with your support. Agreed spend of the Scottish Attainment Fund. With Sarah, our Chief Executive, social worker, sorry Sarah. I'll try that again. We worked with Sarah, our Chief Social Worker, to agree the Scottish Attainment Fund for care experienced young people. New Chief Executive, we are on our way to build a strong relationship with Kenneth Laurie, who continues to show commitment to our work. Supported new accommodation for the care leavers. We supported the development of the new accommodation for care leavers via the consultation work. As a result, the work plans for the accommodation were changed. One of our young champs, Gemma, went to the finished Gary Place and passionately fed back to the formal board on our views on the new accommodation. Awareness raising. We have worked hard to raise awareness of what life is like for young people in care. For example, silent film, artwork and other events. Falkirk signed the Care Leavers Covenant. We hosted the signing of the Care Leavers Covenant. During the event, we told our own personal care stories, shared songs we had written about our own care experience, and performed dances. Language used in care. Falkirk Champs have been working on changing the language in care and made some videos on this topic. Here is an example.
Chat amongst yourselves. But it's a purely work Facebook. It's not
We believe you.
my personal Facebook at all.
Yeah, it's not the parent one, it's on our
Yeah.
one. Oh, you can see me.
Yes. Oops. So I've got Scott to put this onto this. There's the bulbs. Thanks. You're welcome, see ya. Here's your bill. Oh, birthday cards. What's this? What is this? Why have I got this on my birthday? What are you doing? Looking at my report. Are you okay? This is so confusing. My social worker is recommending that I get approval for permanent. What does it say?
Permanency.
Okay, so they are recommending that my panel get approval for permanency with this say?
Prospective.
Prospective foster carers and removal from unit. So am I leaving here? My contact with my siblings is changing to monthly at social work office and it's to be supervised. My supervision order is to continue with current restrictions. What does this mean?
Every day, people who are in the care system pick up language that's not been able to say anything to them. This makes young people feel different and it has to change. Would you let your own child use language like this?
So the idea of the video is that we want to show this to people who use this language every day and to show them how it makes young people feel. They don't understand what's going on, so it's their lives that we're talking about, but they're not actually in the picture. So we look forward to using it in whatever context it comes up in the future, whether that's training, development, you know, whoever that's with, members like yourself or teachers, social workers, whoever in the future. So that's just one of the videos, there's actually 3. So we just wanted to do a little snapshot of it.
We are looking forward to working more on changing language and care for everyone. I'll now hand you back to Siobhan for year 4.
Representation on Education, Children and Young People's Committee for the first time in September 2019. As for the young person joining this committee, as you know, it's me. I have been to these meetings about 3 times now, and it has been an amazing opportunity for me to learn about new things, and I hope that my input will make a difference to future policy and practice. Youth exchange to visit Falkirk's twin in France. Some of our Falkirk champs went to Créteil for a week. The theme was youth participation and youth democracy, where we learn on how their council works with the young people and how they work with their schools, and how we hope that how the Champions Board can achieve that in Falkirk. Working with Young Scot on 2 of our main priorities. Champions Board has been working in partnership with Young Scot for about a year now. We have managed to get free travel for anyone who has been in care, and is included in our pilot scheme. We're also working alongside Falkirk Community Trust to get free leisure and gym passes. We've had a few challenges, but we're getting there, and the impact on the young people has been amazing. And young people are supporting the development of the new corporate parenting plan. Supporting other Champions Board. Over the past few months, we have supported a number of new Champions Boards in their learning and development, such as North Lanarkshire? South Lanarkshire. And West Lothian. Children's Hearing Scotland Partnership. A new initiative between Falkirk Champions Board and Children's Hearing Scotland has been developed, and it is the first time in Scotland, and we'll see that young people have an equal say on the decisions that they make. And I'll pass you over to Janet about the digital support service thing.
I'm sorry about this one because it's actually brand new. I've just met last week. So I met with Housing last week, and we're going to be working across 3 local authorities and 3 Champions Boards, and we will be creating a digital support service online for people who are living in their own homes, so it's targeted at young people. So we're thinking of our care leavers in that context, and so the other Champions Boards, and what we're hoping to take the pressure off day-to-day services, so young people who just going, I don't know where my stopcock is, my lights have tripped, I don't know how to do that, and there'll be a video they can access online where they can just go, oh, that's what a stopcock is, that's where I find my electricity box, and then we're hoping that will have an impact on day-to-day services in a positive way, and we hope that it can be used Scotland-wide by anyone who would like to access it. So that's the last thing we're working on currently. Siobhan?
We hope that this has given you a few ideas on how far we have come, and we are beginning to make a difference to the work of Falkirk Council and other corporate parents. We're all very proud of our Champions Board, and we hope that you guys are too. We are happy to take any questions and are really interested in ways that you think that we can work together in the future. Thank you.
Can I thank all of you for the presentation this morning. That was absolutely fantastic. I think you're doing a tremendous job within the Champions Board, and I certainly think that the members will see the benefits of that, as will others, and give confidence to others to become more involved. So we do have a short time for questions, so I'll open it up to members if there's anything you would like to ask. Councillor Coombs.
Thanks, convener. I wondered if the girls thought that the board's helping you guys, obviously, but do you think that your experience is helping others in the care system?
Yes.
And how do you know that?
It's just with other people have been talking to us and stuff, and just about the stuff that we've doing can sort of put hope into others that they can also help to make change as well. So.
That's good. So they all feel included. That's what I was wondering.
Yeah,
in case it was a sort of them and us.
We're trying to get everyone included. We're just starting to get others.
It's even made most of the quietest people of Young Champ speak up and have their voices heard. So it's really empowering for not just people in the group, for other people joining as well.
Yeah, the Young Scot project's actually been very useful. We've got a double benefit from that, and that's that we are using that. There's a lot of rewards that young people can access through that scheme, so we're using access to rewards by doing little mini research projects. So of the 46 young people who are care experience who signed up for that, that's much more than is in the 12-14 cohort of the
We've
group.
got, yeah.
So we're using that as a platform to access more information about care. So for example, the most recent one that's been up for award is driving lessons. A driving lessons prize, so there is a whole questionnaire about mental health on that, and in order to enter the competition, they must do the questionnaire. So we're using that as a really good platform. So we've got that running for another few months yet, and that's a way we're using to get basically research and more answers in a wider audience.
Sounds good. I've taken a note that you're looking for free gym membership, so as Vice Chair of the Trust I'll take that on board and see if I can beat anybody around the head or whatever it takes to get what you need. I'm joking, don't beat people around the head. I'll send an email.
If you would like the young people to come and present and talk about their work, just get in contact.
Well, I think that it would be helpful, because then the Trust Board is obviously made up from independent members as well, and I think it would be good and inspirational to hear the difference that these kind of things can make. The Cretai exchange, so which council's doing it best? Them or us? now, there's a political answer here.
They're really different. I don't really know on how they say it, but
did you like it?
I think it would be good to sort of do some of the stuff that they're doing over here, as it would make a huge difference.
Right.
As they've got a young people council as well, so it's we hope that could happen as well, because
Cretai Youth Council.
Thank you.
What are they called?
Cretai Youth Council.
All right, okay.
So hope that we can have something like that in Falkirk.
Yeah, the biggest learning was about the relationship with schools that they had. Their modern studies departments in all of the secondary schools, so the youth council went there every year to recruit, and the relationship was really, really close, and they saw the benefits of young people getting involved in local democracy outside the classroom.
Yeah.
And so there's a really lovely link, and that's the biggest learning that we took in terms of the staff for the Champions Board, that's something we could implement here, either just for care experience or as a wider forum.
So what has to happen to make that happen? Kenneth?
Email David.
there is something in the pipeline, I think, that's been to be brought forward, but I think it has to be agreed with the champs first before it comes into our domain.
Okay.
So that's what.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Colley.
General comment and a quick question. I think, I mean, just looking at what you've achieved so far, and when I speak to Sarah regularly and all of my colleagues, that the enthusiasm they have for the Champions Board and the respect that they have for the yourselves and the other young people involved, I think you've achieved a huge amount in actually a relatively short amount of time. I just had a quick question about your 10 main priorities, and you've been working through those. What do you see as your next big priority that you want to, the Champions Board wants to focus on?
What's the personal one? Yeah.
You don't have to answer it today.
I think our one's housing at the moment.
Yeah.
I'm not sure on what our next one is, but at the moment it's housing.
Yeah, that's very, and
yeah, we are hoping to do something towards mental health, so it's probably to do with that.
great. Thank you very much. And I think that I have to say that the Housing Digital Support Service, I was thinking, I could do with that. See, trying to find it.
Stopcock?
Well, I know what a stopcock looks like. Trying to find it was an entirely different, and took actually Scottish Water to come out, but I'll share that with come out.
Councillor Alexander.
Just a wee bit of information. We actually did have a People's Council that was established a number of years ago. Unfortunately, it wasn't a great success in the long term, because obviously it's not there anymore. But it was in the short term, quite successful. And perhaps if it's widened out to be more than a People's Council, more of a young person's council, then perhaps it would be more successful. You learn from your mistakes.
Councillor Murtagh.
A general comment. I want to say that from a corporate parenting perspective, and given the quality of your presentation and your performance, you're setting a very high bar, not just for yourselves but for all our young people. And certainly, from a parenting point of view, I think, if you were my children standing up there, I'd be extremely proud of the way that you're presenting yourself. And I think as corporate parents, we're all very proud of you in the way that when we come to your meetings, and certainly when I've been to hear about your experience in Clytie or anything else, or go to see your films, I feel very welcome in the way that you guys make us feel welcome. So I hope that we are doing the same here as corporate parents collectively, and when the way you feel comfortable to present to us. That I thank you for what you do when we come to see you, because I think that relationship, it's a two-way thing, and it very much helps. So it's been a very positive experience from my point of view so far as well.
Margaret. Oh, sorry, Maureen.
Maureen, sorry. Girls, I would just like to say, as a past teacher in a previous life, I worked really closely with people like yourselves, and at the back of my mind I always wondered how they got on, because once they went to high school and they left, you never really knew what had happened to them. Can I just say, I thought today you were inspirational. I think you should be so proud of yourselves. It was quite a courageous thing to do. Not many people could stand up there and speak to these faces, But you should be really, really proud of yourselves. And I think it's really important now to realise that, you've got your own views and things. You're coming from a completely different perspective from a lot of people, but your voice is so important. And I'm really glad you're bringing in the mental health issues as well, because they are so important today. There are so many young people, young adults who are going through terrible times, and I think your group is just amazing. So well done, both of you. I just think this has been brilliant. Okay.
Thank you. Put that on. Evelyn.
Well, I reiterate what Maureen has just said, but I would like to get an idea of numbers, and how you actually can you actually encompass everybody, or are there people who don't want to?
I think our numbers are 475. and looked after young people who are looked after and accommodated in different settings.
Yeah.
So could we accommodate them all? No. Could we accommodate 5% in our weekly group session? Yes.
And is that one of your aspirations, to try and include more?
Yeah.
I would say, that, you know,
Yeah, 3 different mediums, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's why I was saying about the Young Scot project that we're working on. So that's not just about the universal use of Young Scot and the meeting some of the priorities for the champions. Well, my agenda as the Champions Board coordinator is to get more voices in. So the young people come up with all the questions about mental health that they want answered in terms of their priority, and then I use that to get more voices.
sorry, but I've got a lot. How do you select the lucky people who
They select themselves.
they select themselves? But everybody has the opportunity.
Yes, yes.
And some young people want to be very actively involved, like Caitlin and Siobhan. Others like to dip in and out or take part in the questionnaires or in the bigger events, but they maybe don't want to have as in-depth a role as some of the young people who
Some
come
of the
to
young
the
people have never been to the formal board
Right.
that meets 4 times a year, but other young people are like, I want to go to the board meeting. And so the rest of them just come to they call it the champs group. We officially call it the participation group every Wednesday.
And are you in every secondary school? You spoke about the modern series, no?
We
They're not signed up in any way to this?
No, so we recruit via the community learning development workers that are in secondary schools because the remit's 14 to 26. So through my networks with them, they identify young people who they think would benefit from and would usually get contribution to the group. They contact just people you have relationships with. So for example, the social worker who's in charge of the kinships support, she will contact me and say, this grand's here, she's got wee Jimmy, he's 15, he would like to come. When we organise that, we come along. And we've got kids from all over. You know, we've just had a young person from Midlothian who she's 18, she's moved here. She was part of Midlothian champs, but she moved back here to move back with her family. She's now joined their champs.
Right.
So you've got a whole variety of different things that happen. And
It's absolutely fascinating. Sorry to ask all these questions, but I do like to know how you can progress and how you can expand.
Yeah. Well, how I got to Siobhan was I met Siobhan at a different thing that had been happening that my colleagues in community learning development were running, and I literally just went up and chatted to her and I said, remember me? I've got a group I think you'd be interested in, and that's how she was recruited.
I'm worried about those that slip through the net.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also important, we've got very close links with our Children's Rights Service who are co-located with the Champions Board, and the Children's Rights Officer is in every school, goes into the schools, and so there's a whole range of different ways of trying to capture young people, and regularly we will talk to the schools, talk to the social workers, talk to other people to remind them that that opportunity is there for them.
Thank you very much.
Plus, I think you guys are advocates for the whole cohort about improving services. So it improves the opportunities and the life for styles for everybody that's involved within that through the work that these people do and advocates.
Description, these guys are the reps for these 475 young people that are looked after by the authority.
Okay. Councillor Bissett.
Thanks, Mayor. Caitlin, Siobhan, I think you came across really well, really confident, articulate, and so I think you should be really proud of yourselves for doing that. And I can assure you, when I go home for here today, I'm going to be looking for a stopcock. I think that's a wee bit of learning for me today. So I would just want to ask, do you in turn mentor other people, and where do you see yourselves in a couple of years' time? I know it's putting you on the spot. But
We've been asked that question for the past 6 months. Yeah. For me, I do hope that I can continue working with people that have been in care, because this is my first job and stuff, and I don't want to go to college or anything. And working in here is put so many ideas into my head, and it would be amazing for me to continue working on this. So if Champions Board isn't continuing and stuff, then I would hopefully work like this, if you get what I mean. I'm not too sure. Similar. There we go. Thank you.
I think that you get the feeling in here that everybody's supportive of the Champions Board and the good work that they do, so just keep up the good work.
Councillor Munro.
Oh, thank you, Convener. As an attendee of Champions Board, I know only too well how effective some of these young people are and how they can put us on the spot with their clever icebreakers, and we never quite know what we're going to have to do on the evening in question. But I think the really important thing about this group is not only is it doing a job, but it's that real bottom-up structure. It is run by the young people. They set the agenda. They're telling us what we want, what they want, and that is making the difference. And it really demonstrates how powerful a bottom-up agenda is, and how well it works in improving young people's lives. And the champions are the young people themselves.
Okay. Thank you. Can I just finish saying that I've had the privilege of being involved with the Champions Board before it was a Champions Board. I have seen it evolve and develop, and I am really, really proud of the young people we have, but the fact we have such a strong Champions Board. I would encourage them to continue to keep up the good work. Please continue to challenge us as a corporate parent, because you do it very constructively. But that helps us have a real understanding of what our young people need to be able to flourish and to have the same life opportunities as everybody else. And that's what I would want for my child. It's what I would want for our corporate children. So my heartfelt thanks to you. Continue to do what you're doing, and I look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you. Next item is a notice of motion that was referred to the executive, and it's by Councillor Kerr. Councillor Kerr, do you want to come forward and speak to your motion? There's a space up here if you want to come into the body.
Thank you, Convener. Before I start, if I may, how inspirational it was to be here to listen to the girls, and it's just nice to get some positive things in the council. Thank you, Convener. So the motion I bring today through yourself, Convener, and the members of the committee, I bring this motion to you today following on from an email I received from a gentleman in my ward. I'm sure you'll understand that today's society has changed, and that there are many one-parent families who live in our areas. There are also many families that live separately, but are still a family. The policy that we have at the moment only allows one household per school bus pass for the children. I have a family where the mother lives in Pomont and the father lives in Brightons. The mother lives in Pomont and they have 2 boys. At the moment, the mother has the bus pass from her house. So when the 2 boys go to live with the father, it costs him over £30 a week per child. There are 20 school days in the month, and they go equally 10 days each to each parent. At the moment, the policy that we have only allows 1 bus pass per household, and the one meets the requirement of the policy. And it's not just about the financial position that this puts the families in. It's also about the moral aspect to this situation. It's about being fair. It's about supporting our children, young people, parents and carers. Society has changed. Times have changed. And we need to move with the times. So I ask the Council to note, 1, notes that the position regarding school transport for children with more than one residence as set out in the Transport Policy Operational Guidelines. Notes that the current policy unfairly impacts children whose parents live separately and that the child lives with both parents as one pass is issued on a separate, specifically route and therefore only allows travel to one parent's residence. 3, instructs the Director of Children's Services to report to the next Council with the option to provide school transport to children with more than one residence, where each residence meets the distance entitlement and information of any cost implementations arising therefrom. Thank you, Convener.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Kerr. Do I have someone who is going to formally move that on behalf of Councillor Kerr?
I'll happily move that on behalf of Councillor Kerr.
Someone to second?
Happy to second that.
Thank you. Councillor Murtagh?
I think on the basis that at the moment, from what I understand, if I can ask the Director to clarify, we don't really have an awful lot of data on the on how many children would be impacted by this policy. Is that correct? Right. And I think, although I absolutely can see and understand where Councillor Kerr is coming from, I think that as he's calling for a report to come to the meeting, I'd be happy to see a report coming forward. I think that given that we don't know how many children this affects and the circumstances which surround this, it's perhaps not the best use of the word unfairly in there. I think that I'd be happier that that was removed because I think it's difficult to say whether it is having an unfair impact on children without any data to actually back that up. But what I would like to see is that a future, perhaps maybe not the next meeting of Council, but a future meeting, because I think that given that we have no metrics on this data at the moment, it would be perhaps difficult to pull that around. Do you think a timescale of the next meeting, would that be too tight to pull that sort of data together? Or would that be comfortable for the...
I think part of the difficulty is not only do we have the data, but I don't know that we know how we would come by it. So the particular circumstance that Councillor Kerr is referring to, one would anticipate that there will be other families in that situation, but whether that is of the order of 10 or 100 or 1,000, not only do we not know, but we've given it some thought and we don't really know how we would find out.
Okay.
And there are obviously issues around data protection and so on there. We would be happy to come up with a report on the issues contained within this issue, but I would point out that there are a number of council policies that are founded on the concept of a home address. And I think any change to that would have consequential impacts on a number of other council policies, but certainly would be happy to explore further and bring a report to a future meeting.
Okay. I think, and understanding that complexity and how that data be brought together, I think, and as you say, you've given us some thought already, it would be a challenging piece of work to try and bring that forward quickly, and it would be rather, and we all understand the sentiment behind what Councillor Kerr has proposed, and we want to make sure that there's fair access. Certainly, I think everybody around this table would feel that. So I think that I would feel happier to amend the motion to remove the word unfairly, and note that the current policy impacts those, because it does, whose parents live separately, and we know that there's obviously been changes over many years, but to the kind of family, traditional family that we see across all of Scotland. But what I think would be better, rather than saying options to provide school transport to more than one child is just to simply call for, at a future meeting, a report with an analysis of how many children are affected by the current policy, and then potential options to provide transport and information on any cost implications arising from them, in order that we could more usefully gather that information forward, but still agree with the principles of what's trying to be achieved here within the motion.
Okay, Councillor Bissett, you're in the awkward position of having now moved the motion. Would you be content with removing the word unfairly based on
I think
the
so. I
narrative
don't
that's
think
been
it's
said?
very helpful in the motion. I think that if we go and seek the data and come back with a further report, and then we can take it from there. I think that would be the best way forward.
Yeah, be mindful that we may not have a lot or accurate data, but I think it's certainly worth
But I think we've got to
having
go
a
and
report.
explore it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Councillor Nimmo?
Thanks, Convener. I think society has changed, as was originally said. There's a lot of one-parent families that have split up. I'm just wondering, the case that James has mentioned, Polmont isn't a million miles away from Brighton's. I would say Brighton's is maybe slightly further away from Falkirk. And I'm not so sure that you'll be able to get the information that you're looking for with your report. Could we not just make the bus pass from Brighton's, and that would cover Polmont as well in this case, and leave it to your discretion as a director to deal with these sort of things in the future?
I think my concern over that is if there was discretion afforded to myself, what then would be, I think, difficult is that it would become common knowledge that in order to fix my problem, I approached the director and made the argument and I got a pass. And my concern there would be that that may create the circumstance where when it came to something like a policing request, there would be the same expectation. And what we do with all policies is we apply them to the letter, and fairly and without any further consideration other than what the policies say. So we have discussed this within Children's Services in light of a number of policies that found on there being one address, and we have also given some thought to there just being discretion, but I think that potentially would be fraught with difficulty. I don't know if Gary's got any further comment on that.
Okay. Just to say, I think the difficulty is getting data. The report, yes, we can bring a report back. The report will probably set out the challenges around the statutory requirements of our own internal policies in terms of transport, and also placing requests, because very much placing requests are our whole admissions policy is geared around catchment areas, and to have two addresses muddies that. We currently get a lot of challenges around that, where children will live with grandparents part of the week to suit family circumstances around work, etc. So I think the director is absolutely right. It presents us with a number of challenges around changing our policy, with the then consequential knock-on impact that it is a policy, a procedure, and it sets out a number of statutory alignment of certain things that would probably add to quite significant financial cost. I think also the difficulty we've got in these particular cases is circumstances change. And the circumstances change could be one day, it could be a Tuesday and a Wednesday, staying with one parent, and the following week it could be 2 other days. If the transport links are not buses and say they're taxis, that requires a lot of manual input and administration to change that around. And if one of the parents moved out with the Falkirk area and you're setting the precinct, how would that impact on the availability, or they move further away? So I think we all recognise society has changed, as you said, Councillor Kerr. And yes, we're happy to bring a paper back, but the paper would probably set some of the fundamental challenges that this would impact on a number of other policies. So yes, we would look at it, and the data will always be a problem because we don't know if we'll have that data. In fact, we've not got that data. And I'm also at this point not aware of any other council that's got a policy that differentiates between the circumstances that you're outlined. So it may well be that we look at the discretionary element of it and focus on that. But again, that was, as the Director said, also fraught with some challenge. But we'll bring a paper back and we'll at least air it and we'll outline the facts that we've got.
Okay. Remiss of me, Councillor Harris, are you content with the removal of just the unfairly within the motion, considering we don't have any evidence to support that at this time?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's rather semantic. Maybe unfairly is not the right word. Adversely, in fact, impacts is what I think the motion was trying to say, but if you wish to take it out, impacts can either be positive or negative. But yeah, I'm happy.
But either way, there's a report to come back, which I think is fundamentally what you were looking for, Councillor Kerr, and to look at this issue. And at that point, members will have the opportunity to take a decision that's hopefully more informed. Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to Part A, Education Functions. We have a regular update on early learning and childcare 2020 expansion plan update.
Okay. Okay, thanks very much, Convener. For purposes of the report before the Executive today, the outline is section 1.1. One of the key things and the purposes for the meeting today is to agree our updated and amended early years admissions policy, which is appended to the report. 6 recommendations for the Executive to decide today. They're outlined in section 2.1. I'll return to them at the end of the report. Section 3 outlines and provides members with an oversight on some of the key work that's been undertaken by officers since the last meeting, and they're detailed in section 3. Section 4 looks at the considerations in terms of firstly an update on 4.1, 13 projects that are undertaken. And members will see that as we're now coming to the bread and butter end of the expansion programme, that a lot of the work that we have planned to undertake is now, the tenders have been accepted and we're now at the actual infrastructure work taking place on a number of sites between now and later on in the year. Members will also see that in certain projects that we've now got costs against it because the tenders have been accepted, and that allows us to plan with some certainty around the financial envelope that we've got, and the report is updated for that. If I could draw members' attention just to a couple of things in section 4.1. Firstly, in section 4.1.2, the Insular Amalgamated Site, members will recall the officer were discussing with parents about decant arrangements, and this proves that when we do talk to parents, we do listen. The option for parents was that we decant at the end of term or we decant at the start of term. Parents were keen that they wanted the decant to take place at the start of term, so that's what we've done. So effectively, at the Insular site, the delivery of 1140 hours will be delivered at Labert Day Nursery for the duration of the work until it's completed. Thereafter, the amalgamated site at Insular will come on stream. We reckon that will be in October. Parents wanted that decant from August to October 2020, and that is what we have put forward today. I also mentioned, just in terms of the Scottish procurement framework, members will see that a number of projects outlined, especially in section 4.1.4. 7 overall projects have been rolled forward in the one contract with one company to get the work done. And again, it shows the positive work that we've done via Colleagues and Development Services and in procurement, just to make sure that where we can, in an economies of scale, we can roll forward a number of contracts within the one contract to make sure that we get delivery on time. I would also just draw to members' attention that at the moment, Cairn Primary School, we may have to talk to parents about decant arrangements there. And that will follow on from discussions we have with the contractor to see just what work they can do when the children are in situ or not. Again, this is individual work. It's very much linked to health and safety aspects on site and the requirement of the work of the contractor. So just to draw to members' attention, following the consultations that we have with the contractor, we may need to get and talk to parents, but we'll bring that to the next report in March. The Denny Primary School 1 in Ward 3, the work has been currently re-tendered. That is a complex project because it also involves the core extension of the school to increase the capacity of the primary school itself. It also brings on stream the CLD building that's in the school grounds, and also an extension to that, which is where the early years establishment is going to be located in the future. Section 4.2 just confirms that, believe it or not, we do have 26 infrastructure projects that are remaining, and all different sizes. They are outlined in Appendix 1 for members. Section 4.3 just confirms that the work is still ongoing with the funded partner provider nurseries to agree an hourly rate. There is information that's been circulated to our funded partner providers. The closing date for the submission of that information is at the end of this month, and following that we'll sit down with them and try to arrive at a sustainable rate. The turnout recently, a meeting we had with them, all the members were represented, and very, very positive discussions took place at that meeting. 4.4 confirms that since the last meeting, members will be quite astute to pick up that we've increased childminders by 2, from 44 to 46. Again, positive. Section 4.5 really looks at the critical area for us, was the revision of the early years emissions policy. And it also summarised the key changes we made to the emissions policy. There's been a change to the hierarchical priority that we've set. There's a clear guidance in terms of the priority for children, very pertinent given the earlier demonstration for children who have additional support needs. It also includes the priority for eligible 2-year-olds within the policy, and it also confirms the blended care options that are available to families. Section 4.6, an interesting bit of work that's come out from the Scottish Government and COSLA, which we welcome, is really just looking at a self-assessment guidance for officers to check off to see where we are in terms of engagement with members, transparency around members' engagement. And I hope you would agree that certainly for this executive we've been very transparent, because we've had a paper to every executive for the last 16 meetings, which has been positive, and we welcome that engagement that we have. So officers are going through that just now. The work, I think it was Councillor Reid that had asked for it, with the interaction with community use with some of our early years facilities. That work is still ongoing, and we hope to bring a paper back to flesh out that at the March Committee. One of the key things, and again it's pertinent to the presentation that was received earlier, and this is good news, and it's actually critical that we do it, and this is something that we're being very proactive in. This is early intervention and support for children and vulnerable families. Given the children are going to be in establishments for 140 hours, and we're also bringing in children eligible 2s, it's very important that when any of our professional staff pick up any additional support needs or recognise any signs of families that are vulnerable that want support, that we've got a mechanism in place that gives that early recognition, so that can be signposted to direct extra support to be provided to the children, and also maybe signposted to other professionals, family support teams or social workers around supporting the vulnerable families. This is absolutely critical to what Closer to Home is trying to achieve. The philosophy for early engagement has got to be firmly embedded as we roll out the early years policy going forward. Again, we're being prudent, and we're also being very proactive here. We've set aside £500,000, I'll say that again, £500,000 of money that we bid for it to help set up those early intervention policies. Now, at this moment in time, we don't know how much it will cost, because this is demand-led, and at this moment in time, we're not quite sure what the overall demand would be. But I think it's absolutely vital that we have that infrastructure of support in place, embedded in the culture we roll early years forward, so we can give those children the support they need, and also early signposting the families that are identified as vulnerable, to get the proper professionals to give support. We see it covering 3 areas: early years staff, support for learning staff, family support teams, which are both on the educational side and the social work side, and a central support system coordination, so that we can pick up these things earlier, not lose sight of them, and take them forward in a positive manner. This is collegiate work at its best, and it is very good news. And to quote the Chief Exec when he says a number of things, We think this is absolutely the right thing to do. Section 4.9, again, bit of good news in terms of supporting the local economy. Up to December 2019, 250 additional staff have been recruited. By August 2020, we expect that number will exceed 300. Well, we don't expect, we know it will exceed 300. Again, that's good news. Section 4.10, again, this is a really good news. This is following on the members may recall we had a unit at the Calendar Square Shopping Centre last year. Following on the success of that, where parents could come in and talk to the early years team, Calendar team, we've relocated the team to the Howgate Shopping Centre between now and the end of March. And that's to make sure we can engage with parents and also prospective staff that are wanting to apply for jobs with us as well. We shouldn't lose that side. Early years is quite a complicated area around blended approach, childminders, partner providers. So it's important when parents feel challenged with that, they can go and sit down with the professional early years team we've got and discuss their own individual needs. So if members are wanting to signpost any families, we'll be in situ Monday to Friday, every day, between now and the end of March. This is us taking communication to the heart of it to show that we do engage with parents very successfully, and Karen and our team are now set up in Howgate to offer that support. Section 5 just outlines some of the other consultation stuff that we've undertaken, and Section 6 looks at an update on the financial position. Financial position with capital, and before anybody asks a question, we are projecting a carry forward of capital to next year of £5 million. I'd have to say that as a carry forward, that money is wholly committed to the projects we're undertaking. So as soon as those projects start, that money will go. It's not spare money. And we're allowed within the overall 3-year period to spend the whole overall quantum as long as we spend it by the end of the next financial year. So that money is already committed. It's just an accounting phrase to carry it forward. I see a number of faces before you ask the question, because I know you would. Section 6.2 looks at the revenue funding again. The projection when we wrote the report, again, this is a live document, was about a carry forward of 1.2. Again, that's allowed. The whole quantum we've got between revenue and capital resources is to be used over the whole project date, and the project hasn't finished yet. That figure, at the moment, the reality is that figure will be probably just close on just under £1 million, again, because of commitments that we've made very positively going forward. But we are confident that we'll deliver this within the overall quantum of resources we've got in terms of both revenue and capital. The legal and the risk position are outlined in section 6.3 and 6.4. The qualities, and again, the quality provision, that having mentioned earlier on, the key support for children who have got additional support needs or disability is critical, and the allocation of some money towards that we think is vital to this project being a success, and also help support early intervention going through it. In conclusion, probably 2 words, exciting and challenging, come to mind yet again. We're now rolling our sleeves up. We've passed the design stage. We're now in the bricks and mortar, the infrastructure development side. It's absolutely critical also that we do support the vulnerable families, and we hope we get your backing today for the work that we've done. Karen's here, and we're happy to take any questions as usual. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. I think we're always very impressed and astounded at the amount of work that goes into the delivery of these projects, and indeed the significant investment that's going into our school estate and early years. And I think it's a great credit to the team in being able to continue the delivery of that as we've gone forward. And I did see 1 or 2 eyes raised at the extra £5 million there, but I know that we do have it earmarked for a variety of projects. The challenge with this is obviously the term time and not having the disruption to the children's education. So I think that you've done a fantastic job in trying to manage that as best you can. Councillor Alexander?
Yes. Yeah, thanks for that. A very comprehensive introduction, and grateful to Gary for that. The fact that there's been so few problems in this particular programme that have come to light, that you know, credit is where credit is due in terms of those steered the ship through this particular course. And when you look back at the achievements, it's absolutely phenomenal that we've managed to get this on time, within a budget that's been acceptable to the Scottish Government, and we've been able to do it with the support of the parents. The whole process has been one again of you know, we began being collectively quite sceptical. Sceptical, first of all, of the timetable, sceptical that the resources would be made available from central government, sceptical that we could complete this on the scale that we wanted and the scale we required in order to meet the national criteria. So again, you know, just congratulations, and you know, well done. It's praise that is not only worth making, but it's also, I think, worth reflecting on. It's only when you reflect on what's been said and what's contained within this report, you really appreciate the professionalism of the staff who have worked so hard to make this work. And I'd just like to thank them on behalf of the entire committee. And we look forward to obviously the completion. As Gary has said, we're now on the bricks and mortar stage, and that presents its own problems, or should I say it presents its own challenges, because I think the team have justified that particular title and justified that particular stance. So well done, and look forward to the future reports.
Councillor Murtagh.
I'm happy to second and reserve the right to come back.
Okay, thank you. Evelyn?
I wonder if I could ask Gary, you said some will be trained. Are you going to take on training for other? It's a large number of people. Are you taking on training for some people?
Yeah, as part of the recruitment process, we have developed a workforce development programme as well. So the new position that we created, our early learning and childcare assistants who come in and help over the lunch period, our, as we call them, our workforce of the future. So as part of their registration with the Scottish Social Services Council, they have to be qualified to SVQ2 level. If they wish to go on and complete their SVQ3, then we have the capacity within our team, was it Camelin, our capacity in the curriculum support team, to take them through that that qualification, through the assessment. And we have committed to them that they would be at least guaranteed an interview as part of our workforce development programme. So we are sort of growing our own. That is in addition to our modern apprentices that we still have, and we continue to go through that programme with our modern apprentices.
Okay, thank you. Can I also ask how you're going to monitor success?
I think there's two elements to that. In fact, there's multiple elements to it. Success is the delivery of the infrastructure projects on time and on cost. Success is also the recruitment of all the required staff on time and getting them in the right place as required. And overall, the success will be monitored going forward in the future when we actually talk to parents and the children about the benefits they're getting, because we've got to make sure that just when we get the project in, doesn't mean we stop and rest on our laurels. We've got to engage and make sure that what we're doing is providing quality of learning and early learning and childcare. And that's the bit going forward when we do that consultation, when we get the feedback from the parents and the stakeholders, that we can sit back and say, have we got it right or not? And I'll be the first to admit that I don't think we'll get everything right, but the whole thing is, I think the year after the project's embedded will be us looking at demand, supply and how we tweak things. But what I will say is I'm extremely confident of the team, professional team we've got, that will make a real success of this.
I admire the whole concept. I just wonder if in schools there will be a way to measure whether it has made any difference to the education.
Can I pick that one up, please, Evelyn? Obviously, in relation to the work we're ongoing through our school supports teams and systems, working very closely with our schools and head teachers and colleagues in driving forward quality learning and teaching within our schools. And we've got our internal processes through our ongoing annual reviews, thematic reviews, and also engagement with HMIE. So all those processes will continue to develop our knowledge and understanding of the landscape across Falkirk Council so that we can direct resources and supports as and where they're required, and also respond to the requests that are coming directly from our schools as well. So we've got multiple streams, as Gary said, coming through from our nurseries and early learning provisions, and once those children and young people land in our schools, again we'll have further intelligence to then support our development of knowledge and understanding about how we then progress our journey to continue to drive forward attainment and outcomes for our children across Falkirk.
Thank you.
Could I just add to that? I've just been told it's constantly evolving. In 2 of the establishments already delivering 11 hours, the care inspector have come in and delivered an excellent verdict of that care. So it's that external quality check that's vital. Hopefully we'll continue with that success going forward as well.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael.
Thank you, Convener. Again, I would just reiterate it's a good report, very well presented, and well done to everyone for the achievements so far. Picking up on 4.8, the early intervention, it's obviously crucial and a big part of this, and to be commended. I just wondered, in relation to this, the number of children that need extra additional support. Is that number relatively stable? Is it decreasing, or is it increasing? And if it is increasing, which I suspect it is, are there any reasons, philosophies behind that? Because obviously, going forward, 500,000 this year is important, but will it rise? Will we be able to sustain that? What's the picture looking like going forward? And do people ask the questions, and what are the answers as to why this might be happening in society? Hope that makes sense.
This may be a 2-part answer with my colleague Mr Mackay, but anyway, in terms of the first part of the question was, is the ASN demand stable, or is it growing? The national picture is that it's growing exponentially. The figures within Falkirk are, we know that we've got about 28% of our young people with some form of additional support need, and that mirrors the picture nationally. And that's why it's always providing a challenge on the resources to direct and prioritise the resources to those in most need. In terms of is the 500,000 enough? Probably time will tell, because again, what we've got to make sure is we get the proper infrastructure in place to enable that early intervention to take place. And we see that we have to closely monitor ASN in the coming months and coming years to make sure we have got it right. And it might be that we've got to reprioritise the resources to the earliest stage of intervention, from the secondary phase to the early years phase. If that's what we've got to, that's what we've got to look at going forward. But at this stage, the main thing is we need to create some resource to enable us to start off doing it. And I think we've got this right at this stage, but we need to closely monitor it going forward. David might want to say a few words just about in terms of the bigger challenge that ASN does present.
Can I just say that's a belter of a question? Thank you very much for that one.
He's been writing it all morning.
Yeah, if only we knew. I think we know some of the reasons for the increase. I think over time we've got much better in terms of the skills of the classroom practitioners. We're much more aware of the range of needs within our classrooms, and they're then able to take those into account when developing the programmes. They're obviously working very closely with other professionals across the field, from health, social work services, CLD workers, etc., to understand the nature of the presenting needs of our children and young people. So I think we're better at that and better at capturing that. I do also think we've got, for certain factors, an increasing prevalence that I am unclear about why we're seeing that. We are seeing a significant number of children and young people with severe and complex increasing, but that's because of the quality of health care that's allowing many, many more children to survive much longer and into adulthood now. So again, those are children that previously we didn't have on the radar, particularly within our secondary sector, and we now do, which is a real positive, I think, in terms of the work that's happening across society in terms of supporting those children and families. And obviously that has brought its own challenges to ourselves in terms of actually understanding what those needs are and how do we best serve those needs. And again, that's featuring as part of the ESN review that's currently ongoing as part of the larger educational work that my team will be briefing on later on today. I hope that answered a bit of it.
Obviously, the reason why I'm asking that is it's like the log jam in the river. Who's chucking the logs in? Can we stop the logs getting chucked in? That's basically the reason why I'm asking that question. Are there things that we could do? Is it because of the alcohol problem? Is it break up of families? Is it things like that? Is there anything we could do to strengthen families? Is there anything we could do in relation to some of these other things? Basically, because we're picking up the cost of that and the implications of the outworking of that down here at the council. But maybe there's a bigger question for society to look at in relation to that. But that's helpful. Thank you.
If I could just come in briefly there, echo everything that Gary and David have said. I mean, one of the things that we are aware of in Falkirk is that we have a growing number of children here that are presenting with autistic spectrum disorders. And there are various theories out there about why that should be the case in terms of society that I don't think I'm qualified to go into. But what I would say is that the proposition that we target a resource at the early year stages to intervene early and identify early can only be to our benefit, because if, as has been the case in the past, we conclude when a child is in primary 5 that they are displaying autistic tendencies. If we know that when they're 3, then we can be developing strategies and approaches, and the child can be learning strategies and approaches to navigate their way through the system much earlier, and ultimately we think at much less cost at the upper end of the system. So can we stop logs going into the river? Probably not, but if we know they're there at the point they land, we can probably do a lot better than maybe we have done in the past.
Excellent. Thank you.
I think it's probably about creating the pathways to be able to direct them so that those in greatest need are getting the most acute services that we would require. Okay, Maureen.
Thanks, convener. I would just say I agree completely with Robert there. The provisional allocation of £500,000 seems a lot of money, but it's a really proactive decision to cater for the needs of the 2- and 3-year-olds that are going to start nursery. You're not reacting to something come August or whenever they're going to start. It's really proactive, and I commend you on that. It might be now for Karen. I know that the health nurse used to flag up a lot of children, and sometimes children came into school with a little team. I'm just wondering where she would be in that 4.8, the 4 bullet points.
Yeah, that whole approach that we're trying to recreate and strengthen in terms of what we used to refer to as the pre-5 home visiting team, where there was links with our health colleagues, our social work colleagues, to identify much earlier than, as you say, the August, when they come in, and we react to the children's individual needs that we've absolutely met with the parents. We've identified what's best for the child, and it might not be just as specific additional support needs. It might be that the child might not manage that length of time in that nursery setting, and that's where that blended care comes in, the use of childminders in a much smaller environment. But if we know that information beforehand through this pre-5 team, early intervention team, then we're able to meet the needs of those children right from the start, rather than reacting and training staff when they come in the August.
Good. And sorry, convener, just one last praise for the moment. I think it's amazing. This has been a headache for Gary and his team, and I think they've done really, really well. But the fact is that Falkirk Council is now going to be offering in excess of 300 jobs for different people, young people, what a fantastic opportunity this is going to be for lots of people who 6 years ago would have thought, what am I going to do when I leave school? Or, you know, if the children are now at school and they've got work they can do, it's a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Thank you.
So that's a bonus.
Thank you for those comments. Fiona?
Very quickly, I mean, I think that quite a lot of the has already been said around that early intervention, and I can't overemphasise how much that is welcomed, and I think in my professional background that working with parents, that late identification and that late support for a child with additional support needs, when there's an opportunity to do it far earlier and improve the outcomes for children. I think that's fantastic, and I think also as part of the Closer to Home strategy, in terms of very early getting support to families who may be struggling, I think it's fantastic, and I very much welcome that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bissett?
Thanks, Convener. Just a kind of observation. Could it be the reason we're seeing more people coming with autistic spectrum, is it because we're getting better at diagnosing it as well? Where years ago people might just have slipped through the net, but we know the things to look for now, so maybe that's one of the reasons. I'd just like to congratulate Gary on, as yet again, another concise and really good report, and it's a project I think everybody in here has welcomed. I'd just like to ask a bit about the funding. Once the capital spends and all the work's done, the ongoing revenue costs, will they continue to be funded by the Scottish Government forever, or is there a point where that would need to be absorbed into the Children's Services budget, and what would the cost be?
Again, it's to quote Mr Mackay next to me, it's a belter of a question. To answer, the capital pot we've got is circa 16 million, and we're confident that we'll be able to do the projects within that, and also allowing for the CFCR adjustment that we agreed to do at the last meeting. Going forward, the full year effect, which is the last full financial year of it, is going to come in 2021-22. And the government's fully funded over 19 million of that. So if you're asking me, will our costs be met in the full year effect with the 19 million, the answer is yes. At present, the funding is ring-fenced. It's a grant. It's a ring-fenced grant, so we've got to keep it within the earlier spectrum. The discussions are underway at a national level just now as to how we mainstream that into the GE settlement going forward, which will probably be 22-23 onward. But at the moment, the 19 million that we have for revenue for the full year effect will fund our projects in full.
Thank you.
Okay, Nigel?
Thank you. Convener. Gary, I echo what's been said by my colleague on the right. Another concise and comprehensive, at the same time, report, which we've come to expect from you. 4.4 on childminders. The recruitment of childminders, to me, seems to be kind of going rather slowly. We've gone up 2 since the last report. Can you give us a handle on what your projected requirement is, just, you know, where your shortfall might be? I know you're saying you don't know what the demand is, but you've clearly got some kind of ballpark figure in mind for that.
The reason it's not gone up greatly since then is as part of our phased approach. We've been doing it along with our yearly phased approach. So we met with childminders, another group of childminders on the 14th of January. And that is our final recruitment process. So there was about 60 childminders in attendance to that at that event, and that was everybody else, the areas that we haven't already been delivering 1140 in, that they were invited to come along via our link with the Scottish Childminding Association. So they've all now been given an application form, and they're expected due back in by the end of this month. I met with SEMA yesterday, and we've already got 40 applications in. So ourselves and SEMA will work through those and have them on board in time for August 2020. In terms of the uptake and demand, that's quite hard to predict until parents know exactly what it is they're entitled to and how that blended care works. And that's what our event up in the Howgate is for the next 9 weeks, where we are saying to parents, you don't have to come to one of our establishments, you can blend, and getting that message out. So we're in the very early stages of that at the moment. But our uptake so far is very good with childminders. If Gary wants to speak, I can tell you exactly how many children we're currently funding with childminders. I can get that figure right for you just now.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So have you got a ballpark figure that you think you're going to be in? I mean, you clearly you've got to have some kind of idea of where you're heading for.
We are looking at about 80 to 100 childminders registered or in partnership with us across the whole authority.
Yeah. Okay, so you're just a little under halfway there at the moment. That's fine. Okay, one other question, if I can. Yeah. Just on, just skipping back to 4.3 on the issue of the sustainable hourly rate for the private partner providers. Again, question of time here. You know, we're about 7 months away now, which doesn't seems like rather a lot, but it will disappear. I know that, you know, other councils within the locality have actually set, or at least have given an indicative value, including one who's with. I see that you're going to be working with the collaborative collaborative regional improvement collaborative partners, and one of the ones that I know that has set is within that, in that collaborative. In setting that sustainable hourly rate, do you have a benchmark for what the financial cost is per child for the Falkirk Council ELCCs?
Okay, again, it's a good question, Councillor. Answer to your question is the benchmark isn't against our benchmark. What we're doing is we're looking at the actual cost of every individual partner provider's operation. So the financial information that they will send in is from their annual accounts, and that will look at their annual operating expenditure against the capacity that they can provide. Our job is to model that across all of our partner providers and come to hopefully one agreed harmonious rate that we can agree to implement to them all. So effectively, the focus isn't on ours, the focus is on making sure that on the information that they've got in their accounts, their operating costs for their capacity is going to be met with this rate going forward. In addition to that, there'll be discussions also around a suitable rate for a meal and snack provision as well. And although we've not yet set it, the financial information that we've put out to members is out there, and that's the completed returns are due in this Friday, and we've got a meeting set up with them mid-February to go through and look at that and hopefully come up with the conclusions that it is. So effectively we're extracting their financial information and we're telling them what they need per hour to maintain their profitability, to pay their own operating costs. That's how it will be worked out in the first instance. Obviously there's inflationary elements, etc. going forward, but that's the first protocol to establish that base.
Yeah, but I think the other thing that we would probably like to know is once that's set, how that compares with what we've got. And one of the things which we haven't seen is for our own ELCCs what the hourly rate is inclusive of the meal provision, because clearly that's where that is coming from, the funding which is coming from the Scottish Government, correct? Yes. But we haven't seen a figure for that per child, which is what you're trying to work out for the
again,
private
I'll just reiterate, the Scottish Government are clearly wanting to make sure everyone covers their operating costs. Their current operating costs now would include a profit element. We're not there to give them the funding that we have on our own, because the council's costs may have been entirely different cost base from a private funded nursery. So we've got to make sure that we focus in the first instance in giving them enough money to make sure that they can sustain their own financial viability in the organisation going forward, and that's what we intend to do. We're happy to look at our own cost base at a later stage once we get to the completion of the contract, but there's no government funding that's looked at a model of cost base for every council in Scotland. It's more a quantum of resource that councils have bid in to get. But I'm happy to look at it and consider it in our future.
Yeah, I mean, it would be helpful to have an idea of that. My colleague down there, who's very fond of zero-based budgeting, would probably agree that how much is it costing per child to provide early childcare? I mean, it's really a simple question, I think.
It's not.
No, I don't think it is an entirely simple question. Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave it at that. Thank you for your forbearance.
I think when you're dealing with a range of providers, it's then difficult to actually see what the actual cost is. Councillor Coombs.
You'll be delighted to hear I'm not going to mention zero-based budgeting. It's just a very quick comment, because the questions that I had were far more eloquently put by the Reverend Rollo earlier on, but it's along the same lines, but albeit that, you know, the report is marvellous and fabulous. The reality is that at the moment the level of child poverty in Scotland is abhorrent. I think I read last week that it was worse now than it was during the Thatcher years. And I think that although this report is about early intervention on an ASN need, there is no doubt that poverty and need are very, very closely linked. And I really just wanted to wonder, was there anything else that we can do in our children's services to support those that need the most support, other than, I mean, I'm aware we help with uniforms and meals, but the mental health aspects of living in poverty at that age can be really life impacting throughout their years.
I think I'll say it again, it's another belter of a question. You may recall that as part of the Council's poverty strategy, we took the decision to stop snack charges a couple of meetings ago. And again, that was just one angle where we are not going to charge parents for historic charges for snacks within the earliest establishments. And we're also rolling out a whole variety of meal provision under the marvellous meal times agenda, which we had the presentation on, which is hot meals, snack meals and choices out of larder provision as well going forward. So I think it's something that we'll focus a bit on a future report again, just to summarise where some of the key messages, and we'll not get to it all the time, but I think it is important, and you've asked the question, that we focus on some of the good work that's going on, that does recognise poverty, and it does tackle it in some way in a positive manner in our establishment. So I'm happy to include that in the next report we bring along.
I think so, because I think a quarter of our children living in poverty is just, we should be hanging our heads in shame. Thanks.
Okay, I'm mindful of time, so if we can maybe keep things fairly brief, Councillor Nimmo.
It's just a general point regarding this part of the agenda, Convener, really. We've got two reports in front of us here which relate to national projects, and they're both ring-fenced money. We can't touch it. We have a report in front of us in relation to Gaelic, or Gaelic, however you want to pronounce it. That's certainly not a priority for me. They're all national priorities. Where's the administration's local priorities? Because there's nothing on this agenda.
And you're right, your question's not particularly pertinent to the agenda. These are national priorities that we've agreed to deliver on. And these are not just national priorities, they're local priorities. For us, particularly our early years in childcare, and Councillor Coombs has just spoke very eloquently around child poverty, and a lot of what we are doing is relating to that locally. Alternatively, you're quite at liberty to bring forward any priorities that you would have, either by notice of motion or through Councillor Nimmo, if there's something you don't think has been addressed.
These three reports are based on your national priorities.
But you're disagreeing with our early year in childcare.
No, I'm asking where your local priorities are as an administration. There's nothing on this agenda. You're just implementing national policy.
And what's wrong with that?
You should be doing a lot more locally.
and we do a lot more. It's just on this occasion, it's national policy details that are on here. In fact, if we actually go back to the presentation, a local policy was the initiative of the Champions Board and everything we're doing around our corporate parenting. And we can actually see the difference that all of that is making. I think the outcomes of all of that is far more important, particularly to our young people. So I look forward to seeing your suggestions and coming forward, Councillor Nimmo. Okay, Councillor Murtagh, I'm mindful of time.
Very, very briefly, I'm surprised to hear that, particularly from Councillor Nimmo, because I think I've heard on many occasions about how important it is that as a local authority we take control of our responsibilities to deliver our flavour and our interpretation of what national policy is. And I think that the department should be praised for the way in which they've been very innovative, even as compared to other local authorities, in putting that forward. And I think that point is very important to be made, and where we are early in this process, this information and the evolution of putting this out and including your new consultation and Howgate is very welcome, so that parents can see, and these are all the local way that we are responding to get the best for our children, and implement a national policy that is about reducing poverty and having a positive impact on our young people, which I don't think could be a more pressing priority at all.
Thank you. Briefly, Councillor Alexander.
Yeah, very briefly. You would expect an SNP administration locally to be reflective of an SNP administration nationally. But what's reassuring is how few divisions there have been in this committee, which means that not only SNP members quite happy with the national policy that's coming through, but also members of other parties.
Right, thank you. On that, we agree the report. Okay, thank you. Report on the survey of future demand for Gaelic and medium education.
Thanks, Convener. Committee will remember that we agreed in September of 2019 that a survey would be undertaken to determine the future demand in Falkirk for Gaelic medium education. The report that was before committee in September outlined the methodology for meeting a comparatively limited need for Gaelic medium education in Falkirk, and explained that that had historically been provided by accessing places in both Stirling and North Lanarkshire. It was agreed that what we would do is survey one year group, and we agreed that we would survey what's often referred to as the anti-preschool year, in other words, the parents of all 3-year-olds that were starting within our early years establishments in August. So that survey was undertaken between September and October in 2019, and this report feeds back on the results of that survey. If I could refer you to section 4 of the report, there's detail there of the response rate. So in total, questionnaires were issued to 885 parents, and we got in total 170 of these 885 responded. Of the 170 that responded, 67 parents out of that 170, or 67 out of the 885, indicated that they would be interested in Gaelic medium education should it be provided in Falkirk. A smaller number, 31 out of the 885, indicated that they may be interested in Gaelic medium education if it were to be provided out with Falkirk. Now, given that last year in total there were 20 children from Falkirk from primary 1 to S6 accessing Gaelic medium education, in other words 20 across 13 year groups, this number would appear to be significantly higher. So it is my proposition to the committee that we do some further work to determine whether or not this figure is credible. The question that we posed to parents was simply, would you be interested, yes, no? And what I would propose, given that all those completing the survey gave us their contact details, what I would propose is that we organise and advertise a seminar for any and all interested parties to come forward so that we can try to narrow down the veracity of this apparent expression of interest. And the reason I say that is that if you simply ask the question, would you be interested, yes, no, I don't think you go forward on the basis that there is a clear identified demand on that basis. I think what you need to do is have a conversation with those among the 67 to establish whether or not they have given serious thought to what the proposition would be. And my point there that is, I think, most significant is that in all other local authorities other than the Western Isles, Edinburgh and Glasgow, Gaelic medium education is provided from one central establishment. So, for example, I don't know if the parents among the 67 will have given much thought to the fact that they could potentially be signing up to putting their child in a taxi for 7 years, taking them away from their existing peer group, and essentially going down a completely different educational route. So what I'm suggesting to the executive is that we go away and do a little bit further work and bring back a further report with hopefully a much more nuanced and detailed description of what we understand the future demand might be.
Okay. Thank you, Robert. I think this shows that, well, it's a national priority, that there's a real demand locally as well, and one that we can't just ignore. Councillor Murtagh.
Taplev and I would just say that Hamigli Holisha Avia Viking and Achich Shaw Aaron Clark Husen and you, or otherwise I'm happy to see this report on the agenda today, hopefully. It represents, as was introduced, the next step in our understanding of what the demand for Gaelic medium education may be within Falkirk. And I would agree that the survey itself isn't enough to gauge what the demand is for Gaelic medium education, and I welcome the recommendations to have further investigation and an information event to allow interested parents to avail themselves of that detail. And while I agree that we should be focused very much on those who have responded in the positive within that survey, I think of those who responded, that works out to nearly 40% of the respondents saying that they did have an interest, despite actually more than 2/3 of them having a child already in education establishment. So that's actually quite a positive metric. I would like to just ask the Director that although we do focus and have the contact details for those parents, that we allow, I mean, I know that as when I had children at preschool, consultations weren't always top of my list of priorities or passed me by, so it would be welcome to extend an open invitation to any other interested parents who may have missed that, and whether you could confirm that would be all right, we could, if other parents expressed an interest, that they could come along to such a meeting.
I think in principle the answer to that would be yes. However, I would wish to continue to limit it to 1 year group.
I did indeed understand.
Because what we're trying to establish is what might be an annual demand, and if we opened it to all, we'll get a very mixed up answer.
Indeed, absolutely. But I think that I don't know, maybe I just had particularly devilish children in their preschool or anti-preschool years, but certainly it's quite a difficult and challenging time to respond, and it wasn't perhaps obviously it wasn't widely advertised in that way. So I just want to make sure that opportunity isn't missed for any parents who are still thinking about that. I don't think we could perhaps have picked a more topical time to have this on the agenda. Moving forward with our consultation with parents, given the discussion in the media over the last week. And while the report is right to highlight, and you've said so in your introduction there, Mr. Naylor, about the practical and the challenging aspects of potentially having one central location if indeed Gaelic medium education were to be practical within Falkirk. I don't think that's necessarily something which parents are a stranger to whether they're making choices over faith schools or other, that you know, they have that opportunity, and there's no more complicated or important decision for parents than what the future of their children will be. So I'm sure they don't take that lightly. But also it'd be fair to say that given the consultation that was put out, they also haven't been presented with the positive aspects of Gaelic medium education either, and you know, the opportunity to understand, as we've heard in the news recently, some of the very welcome and positive health benefits, attainment benefits, and even long-term health benefits of bilingualism, but specifically some of those studies relating to Gaelic. And I think that while we all sit around this committee making decisions and trying to implement policy which affects attainment, which affects future job prospects, which affects positively the health of our students, the evidence is there that Gaelic medium education is one of those opportunities to improve attainment, to improve job prospects, to improve attention, cognitive behaviour, long-term cognitive health, and that we would be remiss in our duties as a committee not to consider that as part of all the things which we consider to improve the education of our children, be that STEM initiatives, be that early years. And so it's important that we not only look to our statutory duties as set down by the Scottish Parliament, but we also look to it from an attainment point of view. And as Gary very helpfully said in his previous report, we listen to parents and we act on parents, so it's right that we should consult with parents on that. So in moving forward, I'm very happy to see this on the report and agree to the recommendations. And I would just note that, as Councillor Meiklejohn was saying, Gaelic is a thriving and growing language in our community. And in Falkirk, indeed, in this very building, we've been having Gaelic classes which have shown even that we have 30 new people just from the new year, from a variety of backgrounds, not just your traditional hill walkers or music lovers or you know, history buffs, but new Scots who are coming forward, be that from south of the border or abroad, and many different demographics who are interested in continuing with the benefits of Gaelic education. And I think that we should reflect that and consider going forward and assessing that information. So, as I say, I'm happy to move the recommendations and look forward to the report coming back to committee.
Okay, Councillor Alexander.
Second the report, convener, and reserve the right.
Okay. Is there any other member? Are we agreed?
I agree with the recommendations to go forward and speak to the parents and organise a seminar or something.
Okay, Councillor Coombs.
Just a very quick question. How many families signed up last year, do we know?
20.
There's 20 families in total.
Yes.
So how many signed up last year?
50 children in total, that's probably significantly fewer families.
Right, okay, and that's been since its inception, it wasn't just last year.
Our analysis of the numbers, it's been variously 16, it's been 23, it's been 20, so it's in that window over many years in Falkirk.
Okay. So 20 children
across
from primary one
through
senior years.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm hearing a lot about demand, and I don't know anybody that's done it. But anyway, thanks.
Councillor Munro.
Thank you, convener. I just wonder if we actually give this kind of opportunity to parents on other minority topics. There must be lots of subjects that could be taught in schools that currently aren't, where there is demand, or is this just a specific one simply because it is Gaelic, or but you know, the children may want to do subjects that aren't mainstream now, and or another kind of language. So do we do the same thing for all of these groups?
No, we don't. Well, the reason for this is that there was legislation, I think in 2006, that required all Scottish local authorities to have a Gaelic language plan. And within the provisions of the Gaelic language plan, local authorities also have a duty, Colin will keep me right, a duty to consult on the need and or demand for Gaelic medium education. That was something that had not been formally and actively done until September So we're actually fulfilling a requirement of Gaelic language plan, which is that we should be able to demonstrate that we have at least been through a process to establish whether or not there is a demand, and if there is a demand, take steps to address it and to meet it as required.
Okay, on that, are we agreed? Obviously not.
Just one comment. Robert, quick question. How many other languages do we currently teach in high schools in Falkirk? And what's the most popular ones?
The most popular one is Spanish. We also teach French. We teach German, Italian, and we have a relatively small number of presentations in Mandarin. David will keep me right if I've missed any, but predominantly it is Spanish then French.
Is there any call for Polish? There's a big Polish contingent living in the Falkirk area. Do other pupils who don't speak the language want to learn that?
I haven't ever sought to establish whether or not there would be a demand for Polish or otherwise.
Okay, Michael.
Coming from Fraserburgh, I'd just like to bring a bit of culture to this esteemed committee here and point out that there is more than one language in Scotland that is often left on the shelf, and so I'll refrain from saying a poem in Doric, but just say that coming from the northeast, that I always find these debates interesting, that we just promote one of our national languages and not more than one.
I'm sure if there was a
Sorry,
campaign
just
put
very
forward,
quickly, with an educational background, children struggle to take more than, I mean, we're trying to get them fitting into society, and English is still not being successfully put out to all pupils, and to start including Doric and Gaelic. I think we'll have to look at what we're trying to achieve and raise attainment, and if there is a need, yes, fit it in, but we could have every language under the sun.
some of it is very much required if people wish to work out with the UK, and the use of international languages. And I think that's one of the key aspects. But in this case, it's very much around our heritage and our culture. Colin, do you want to?
I wonder if I could maybe just reiterate something that Robert's already said, is that Gaelic does have a different status within the law, and it's been recognised for, I think, longer than anyone can remember as part of an official language within the education system and statutorily so. But Robert's right also to point to the Gaelic Language Act of 2005, which introduced the requirement to have Gaelic language plans on each local authority. And I think within our plan there is a commitment to look at what the demand is for Gaelic medium education, and that in turn has been reinforced by new legislation in 2016, which further created duties on education authorities to promote the use of Gaelic medium education and to assess what the demand is. So it does have that status within the law, and everything that the Director is proposing to you today is really in accordance both with the legislation and what we've also said in our plan.
Thank you. I really would like to move on, folks. If it's not going to, if we've got no further comment in relation to this, because you've both already spoken.
I did reserve the right, but...
Right, okay, I'll let you, Councillor Alexander, as you obviously didn't speak.
Just to make a point, that one of the highlights for me of the previous administrations was the time that we were successful in bringing the national mod to Falkirk. Now, I've no desire to learn Gaelic, but I do like listening to it. It's a beautiful language, especially in song, and it's part of our culture, and we should never forget that.
Okay, thank you. As there's no amendment coming forward, we agree with the report. Okay, Valley and West Lothian Regional Collaborative. Robert?
Thank you, Convener. It was agreed some time ago that we would present reports twice per year to the committee outlining the progress that has been made initially with the establishment of the Forth Valley and West Lothian Improvement Collaborative, and then to provide updates on some of the key activity. The purpose of the report today is really to set out what has happened over the course of the last number of months. Last September, the collaborative was at the stage of having what was at the time referred to as its Phase 2 plan reviewed by Education Scotland, with feedback to the Scottish Government on the activity and the progress. And at that time, there was also reporting to the effect that the four councils had received funding of just short of £1 million to support the ongoing work and development of the collaborative activity. So this report is essentially indicating that over the intervening period, what has been developed is what's now being referred to as a 2019 to 2020 plan. Rather than have annualised plans, there's now an understanding between the various parties, Education Scotland, local councils and the Scottish Government, that we should move to a 3-year planning cycle, that the priorities that had been identified within the various collaborative improvement plans across Scotland were robust and were focusing on some of the key aims and aspirations of the Scottish system linked into the National Improvement Framework, which you may recall David had a report on at the last committee. I don't want to go through the improvement plan in detail, but if I refer you to page 49, there's a list there of the various sections within the plan. Possibly most importantly, the plan, as you go through it, details the key work streams that we are working on. It also gives some indication of the work that has been done, not just by seconded, in large part, local authority officers, but the fact that there is now a team in place on a regional basis deployed by Education Scotland. And the various work streams meet regularly, and these work streams now have representatives of all four councils as well as Education Scotland to plan and deliver activity. As time goes on, the maturity of the collaborative is developing and growing. We now have a variety of different forums that include not just head teachers but also deputy head teachers and class teachers, and we are now at the stage where we are organising and delivering training and planning for intervention that enables collaborative events to take place for staff from across the system. We are also at the stage where there's opportunities afforded to individual schools to be working directly with other schools, perhaps in another authority, where the characteristics of the school and or the challenges faced by the school and or the opportunities of good practice can be shared more directly. So I would say that going back just a little over 2 years ago, when I think the first report that came to the committee from memory was around November 2017, we're now at a stage 2 years on where we've got four councils working very closely together. One of the first thoughts among the head teachers is, how can the collaborative help me? What can I learn from other authorities? So it's becoming established as a way of working as we move forward. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Councillor Alexander.
Can I formally move the recommendations, Convener? Robert touched on the attitudes 2 years ago, whenever the Collaborate was set up. I think it's fair to say that the Collaborate has been a success. It has allowed us to learn from other authorities, it's allowed other authorities to learn from us, and it's benefited kids in general. So with that, I'm happy to move the recommendations. I don't need to say too much more about the report. The report gives the detail that the members have been looking for, and so I'll leave it at that, Convener.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Crawley.
I just second it, reserve the right to come back.
Okay, Councillor Munro.
Thank you, Convener, and thank you, Robert, for your summary. I had 4 goes at reading this report. It's 83 pages long. It's very wordy, and it doesn't follow a kind of recognised pattern. I know that we're trying to get schools to work together collaboratively and share best practice, but this goes all round the houses to say things, and it's very hard to find the answers to the questions you want. For instance, what is the problem? The problem is a challenge in literacy and numeracy, but it doesn't tell you what the scale of the challenge is and whether it's specific to some areas. It does talk about the need to look at poverty, but it doesn't talk about the causes or specifically how we can do that other than in schools, and schools are only part of the challenge. It is very difficult to find the bits that you specifically want to see, and I think if we're talking of busy teachers who have to read through 83 pages to find the bits they want, then it's particularly challenging. And the best bits are at the back, where you have this brief summary of what it is you're trying to do in terms of maths numeracy. But there are many pages of this which are full of acronyms and things and are really, really challenging for a committee such as ours to read.
Robert?
I take your point. I think necessarily a plan follows a format that is developed by probably innumerable other committees elsewhere. So our plan is set out and details much of what you would see, I believe, in 5 other regional plans. In answer to your bit about poverty, for instance, or whatever, the important bit is what happens on the ground. The important bit for teachers is the monthly newsletters that we give them about activity and opportunities that they can access. It's also the stuff about the Numeracy Academy and what people can actually do. And sitting behind all of this is a great big pack of data about, you know, what is the numeracy deficit in Clackmannan compared to what is the numeracy deficit in Falkirk and so on. We have all that. It would take us to hundreds more pages. So I would suggest that the way that the plan is set out is not necessarily aimed at an audience of a class teacher to sit down and read front to back. It's much more about the fact that we are saying to our colleagues in Education Scotland in particular that here are the strategic approaches that we intend to take, and the practical day-to-day activity is somewhere else. I mean, I think I would intend in future, rather than providing reports on the next plan, to be bringing much in the same way as was done yesterday with Council of the Future, to be bringing forward, here's some work that has been done on a collaborative basis. This is what we did. This is what we changed. So presenting over time some case study reports about the impact of collaborative working. Just as yesterday you saw, here are some of the changes that have taken place over the last 2 or 3 years, for example, in telecare or whatever. So I wouldn't intend in future to be bringing, here's the next plan, here's the next plan. I hope that helps a little bit.
I think that given that literacy and numeracy are so important in our schools, and the fact that if children do get to the end of primary without being able to read is a kind of lifetime impact on them. It's something that we're all terribly interested in, and it's really disappointing in the sense that, you know, we know there's work ongoing, but it's very hard in among all of this to find out where the progress is and how it's been accomplished. But I think, as you say, that a presentation that actually demonstrates where we're going would perhaps be more helpful to the members.
Okay, Councillor Bissett.
Just a very quick question, Convener. How's the efficacy of the collaborative measure, and is there oversight of the collaborative? Is there somebody who looks at it to see if it is being effective?
Yes, we have our own governance structure that has been established as part of the collaborative arrangement. So we have either the leader or the portfolio holder for education from each of the 4 councils and the 4 chief executives meet to satisfy themselves that the direction of travel is what collectively they would agree, and that they are pleased that we are making sufficient progress. The other overview of that is our work with Education Scotland. So what happened at each stage was, as plans were developed, they were submitted to Education Scotland, and what Education Scotland then did was they arranged what was called a peer review. So the first one that I was involved in, we sat down with the West Partnership in Glasgow, and we gave comment on their plan and their direction of travel, as did Education Scotland. And so it was a kind of 2 people from Education Scotland and the 2 leads for the 2 collaboratives, and there was a peer review process, and that's been undertaken again for this round of the next phase of planning.
Okay, anyone else? I think from hearing from some of the teachers involved at all levels, they are starting to really see the benefits of having access to the collaborative and able to actually share on each other's experiences and learn together and bring skills from other parts of the collaborative to Falkirk, and similarly we can share ours. I think it has really helped the fact that we have a young workforce in particular to develop, and certainly it's the right thing to do in being able to help maintain the professional aspects of our education, and that indeed I anticipate will be a flow through to the outcomes and hopefully continue on the trajectory that we've got, having reached the best attainment in Falkirk we've had ever. To be able to maintain that is a real challenge, and I think the collaborative will be assisting being able to do that going forward. Okay.